Nick, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present our company.
Looking forward to hearing it.
Let me get my, can you see my screen now?
We can.
Excellent. Let me put it on full screen mode. And so my name is Nick Tezapsidis, the presidency of Neurotez, a biotechnology company operating from New Jersey. The title of my short presentation is about Memtin, our patented hormone replacement therapy for slowing cognitive decline in Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. So obviously this is a little bit of a switch from the previous presentations, but they're in a way connected under the coronavirus crisis. You know, playing games is a wonderful way to pass some time while you're indoors in this sort of low security prison that we're all in. And Alzheimer's disease patients suffer tremendously because, particularly those that are forced to stay within nursing homes. As you all know, these have been severely affected by this crisis. Alzheimer's disease overall is one of the most common forms of dementia among the elderly. It gets progressively worse. There's no remission. It's the 6th leading cause of death in the United States, affecting more than 5 million Americans, more than 30 to 40 million worldwide. And it's the only cause of death among the top 10 in America for which we do not have any solution in terms of prevention, cure, or even slowing down. So it's a huge unmet medical need. There's been a number of attempts, all of which ended up in a failure, even at the last stage, phase 3 clinical trials. So we are offering a very promising solution, and this is based on a number of data that we have obtained over the years, both in vitro and in vivo preclinical studies, in addition to retrospective and prospective human studies, and on top of that, some anecdotal interventional human studies, all in conjunction support a role for leptin in neuroprotection, cognitive enhancement, the ability to decrease the levels of phosphatidylate beta, who have been the targets of a number of clinical trials, nonetheless failed, and it is associated with a lower risk for dementia in the elderly. So leptin as a replacement therapy, Memtin is our new name for leptin, is a relatively de-risked and multifunctional preventative and therapeutic approach for, in particular, a subgroup of Alzheimer's cases that are characterized by being in the early stage of the disease, or prodromal Alzheimer's disease patients who are characterized by hypoleptinemia and have a genetic predisposition. The latter part is something that we will determine using a genetic testing, a collaboration with a company out in the UK. And this is just a snapshot as to where we are with the drug development program that we are in the middle of right now. So far, we raised about 5 million and executed preclinical studies. We obtained patents. We did the cloning of the recombinant protein, did stability studies, formulation studies. And now we're raising money for the most expensive portion of drug development, which is the clinical trials. We are effectively phase 2 ready because the product is something that has been approved already, and we have a good picture about its safety and tolerability. We are raising part of the funds required through Netcapital. We will be continuing after the closing of this offering. The target is to raise about 10 million to deliver a phase 2 trial. And that is roughly what is needed for a company to become valued north of 500 million. So this is an exceptionally lucrative opportunity for investors. And here's a summary. Essentially, we are repurposing Myalept, which is the name of the product in the market, as Memtin. The company has top-class leaders in academia and pharmaceutical industry ready to execute. The drug is an endogenous natural protein that is easily transported from the periphery into the brain to receptors of the hippocampus, an area of the brain that is particularly affected by the disease. It is supported by preclinical studies and clinical observations. It is perfectly positioned to allow early intervention and prevention therapy for those who are at risk. We have patents around the globe. As a biologic, it will get 12 years of market exclusivity from approval of this for this indication. It can produce in large amounts relatively cost effectively and scaling in E. coli, because there's no need for post-translational modifications. The treatment will be combined with diagnostic tests for leptin and genetic markers, and can be subject to accelerated approval using the protein as a surrogate marker as an endpoint. This is a substantial push that we're trying to allow us to secure this path that would enable a cost-effective and reduction in time towards marketing and commercialization. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Nick. Again, a reminder, if anyone's got questions for Nick, please let us know. So the first question from the group is, why not have a larger company take you to phase 2 or phase 3?
Usually with companies in this field or this industry, although a strategic alliance is possible, the most common path is for the smaller company to execute clinical development efforts up until a phase 2 clinical trial. And at that point, as I mentioned, the company becomes, we're going to be spoiled because of the offers we're going to get both from potential partners and institutional investors. And there's a great possibility that the company may be able to deliver the drug into the market after a phase 2. That's what the accelerated path involves. And that will be a significant, impactful outcome for our negotiations with the FDA.
The next question is, do you have a pharma distribution partner in mind or lined up yet?
No, it's a bit too early for that.
Too early for that. This is more of a comment. Someone commented that this is a great market opportunity. Could you just talk a little bit about what the market opportunity looks like?
It is estimated, and these are from big banks like Goldman Sachs, etc., that the asset represents, particularly if it is the disease modification entity that we believe it is, in the nature of 12 billion and above, even up to 30 billion for the entire span of its exclusivity in the market, with a peak around 12 billion. So it's an enormous, a totally lucrative opportunity. Remember, there's 5 to 6 million affected by the disease in the US and about 40 million at the global scale. And a drug that would be, and this is a totally rough estimate, price between 10 and 15 million a year, even if we get only 10% of the patient population, you can do the calculations.
Great. And the next question is manufacturing hazardous? With E. coli hazardous? Are there side effects?
No, not at all. Not at all. There have been a number of recombinant proteins that are produced in that cell type. And the beauty of it is that it's generally much easier to scale up, and also particularly when you don't have to have any post-translational modification of the protein. And when you do, that's when you move into mammalian cells, and it becomes much slower and much more expensive. It's an advantage of the asset that it can be produced in E. coli.
Great. And then the next question is, what's the time frame on clinical trials?
We anticipate to start clinical trials in about a year's time, following IND approval. That's the FDA saying you can move on with clinical trials. We'll be able to deliver phase 1 in about another year, and then a small phase 2 another year. So between 2 and 3 years, we'll get a small phase 2.
Great. And the last question we have time for today is there a targeted cost per treatment?
I mentioned 10 to 20, 10 to 15,000 per patient per year, but it's a, you know, it could be lower than that.
Great. And sorry, I know there's a couple more questions that have come in. We just don't have time, but if you appreciate all of the fantastic questions from all of the participants, and if anyone's got additional questions for Nick or any of the other companies, please feel free to post on their discussion boards on their Netcapital pages.